We're here to solve this LITS puzzle by Nate Perkins called I'm Going Down. The theme is going to come from the staircase region that splits the center. Notice that one thing this does is it actually breaks the lower left of the grid and the upper right of the grid into distinct regions, and there's only going to be one connection through green that's going to have to link everything in the lower left and everything in the upper right together. So connectivity is going to be key here. Another thing to notice is we've got some regions that zigzag staircase will always take S tetrominoes however we shade it, and it's also near these other regions that will always take S tetrominoes. And so an advanced LITS or solver will see that you can't ever cross these borders because we're going to have an S near another S if we did have two shaded cells across those. And so the start for me in this grid is marking off not just these 3 cells out of 5, but also marking off a ton of the center group because of where we can't have 2S tetrominoes come together. That's going to give a setting where we've got either the lower right or the upper left of the grid as a connection. Again, remember the lower left, this whole set, and the upper right, the whole set have to come together. And this lower left space is where connectivity is going to be probably harder, in part because right now we have a case where we can't cross this border. And so what we have is a case where this S tetromino has to join through this region to these other blue groups. So effectively, either of these two regions have to be joined by this blue, or even this cell by this blue on the bottom for the whole puzzle to work out. And what that forces is one of these 3 cells at least to be shaded. If I don't shade any of these, if I shade this pattern over here, these 2 tetrominoes do not join up with these other tetrominoes, and they would have to separately cross the center divide. So I always have to take at least one of these 3 on this edge to join to anything in yellow. That means I take at least these 2. It means I never take this one. It also now means I can't cross the center through the lower right side. And so the break-in that you can get by all that careful thinking is the upper left is how we get connected through the center slash. And in putting that in the grid, we've got a forced L. That comes to here. In this space, one thing, if you do some look ahead, you'll recognize is where this is an L. If I take this cell, I will always put this pattern in, which will force another L into the grid, either left or right. So this cell is not usable, which means this cell is taken. Once I put in the remaining sort of shape for this S, I get this forced S. I get where this has to come up and take this. For connectivity, I've got to take this cell. Out of these 5, I'll have to take these 2, but I can't put an L near another L. So this is an S. And then in this space, which now can't be an L or an S, I only have a T that can go in. And so we finished the lower left of the puzzle and also gotten this connection through the upper left. And so we'll need to see, we actually have 2 different regions that can come through. Like we could come through here in red, or we could also connect through this cell. And so we're going to have to figure out which of those happens, but we can do that by doing some shading logic on the far right. This first group I'll just mark in. Notice this 6-cell region always takes an L shape, and of the 3 L's that can be for this, these 2 cells are always shaded. So we can mark this off. This then 6-cell region now always has to use these cells, and in doing that, we should now be able to look ahead and see another key cell. So if this cell is shaded and I mark these as unusable, I always put in an L into the grid, and this region we said will always have L shapes around it, so we'd have an L near another L, which means that this cell is not usable, and marking that as unusable will actually fully fill in the shape of this L, mark off this cell. Actually through this what I'll call an I region, these 7 cells, we now can't take this, but we also can't take these. That'd be an L. This would also be an L. We have to put in a T in this region to dodge this shape because we don't have anything else we can put into it. In the lower right, we can't take this cell because we would cross and form a 2 by 2 square. So we have to take this cell by connectivity. We've got to come through these, but we can't put an L near an L. So this is L with S. This cell is needed for connectivity, but it can't be an L. It's got to be an I. And so we actually learned that we've got to connect up through the top. So we can't connect through these cells, and this I has to be near an L, not another I. This S is here for connection's sake. We've got to come through this cell. If I took this cell, we would always form an S or a T, and those are the 2 shapes that are being connected. So we come this way, we put an L to join the S and the T, and we finish the puzzle. So really brilliant construction. I love the use of the center region. I loved how it split these two sides of the grid, and you then had to think about the region connectivity to understand use the upper left, not the lower right. So hopefully you got a sense through how I solved this puzzle of some things I look for in LITS, and we'll see you again soon.